Hi, welcome back to the Writer's Parachute. We're so glad that you're able to join us. And today we have a special guest, Dr. Sunil Raheja. He's going to be joining us and talking about his book, Dancing with Wisdom. But of course, we always start out with a little bit of housekeeping. So I want to remind you to share, like, and subscribe to the YouTube channel and go check me out on all the different podcasting platforms. So we also have Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. You can go check those out at Writer Parachute with no S. So we are here today. And so as we've been talking, new in 22 is we're talking about self-care. So new you in 22, new things to do in 22. So today's subject we're going to talk about is self-talk. So a lot of times when we are dealing with ourselves versus other people, we are overly critical. We're much harsher with our own self than we are even with our best, dearest friend, or even our worst enemy. We tend to be very harsh, unforgiving, and a little too demanding. So I want you to remember when you are working through your writer and author journey, publishing journey, marketing journey, any journey that you're doing with your book or your writing, is to remember to give yourself grace, give yourself a moment. You are not capable of doing everything every day all the time. We are creatures of ebbs and flows. We have moments when we're high and moments when we're not. And give yourself that rest, give yourself that grace to remember that you need to rest. You need to refill that bucket or that pitcher or wherever you're drawing that creative spirit from, or that what you're sharing out in the world. So just remember, self-care is all about you. And I want to know what you're doing new in 22 to help you with self-care. For myself, I try to turn it all off. And I also put up affirmations for myself on my mirror. Now, I know that people think that's a little silly, and they do change from time to time. Sometimes they're quotes, sometimes they're just a reminder of you're enough, you're doing a good job, you're getting it done. Those things do give me a lift when I take that moment to check my makeup, check my hair, or just brush my teeth. So remember, self-care is all about taking care of you. So we're so glad you were able to join us today for the Writer's Parachute. And I want to welcome our guest, Dr. Sunil Raheja. So
thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon. So Sunil is a psychiatrist and a coach who, through his Dancing with Wisdom coaching program, equips overwhelmed, frustrated, and distracted high performers to figure out their next best step so that they can create the life they hunger for and still have time for family, friends, and fun. He also has a podcast and YouTube channel on the theme Dancing with Wisdom. It is a privilege to work with senior leaders who feel stuck, empowering them to re-engage with deeper purpose and live life in crescendo so that their best days are still to come. Sunil has worked as a psychiatrist for over 25 years. He lives in London with his wife and have 4 grown children. So welcome to the Writer's Parachute, Sunil. How are you today?
Oh, thank you, Donna. It's just a great privilege to be here with you. And I was just thinking it's 2 years since we've known each other, and I think it's just wonderful to be here. You know, you were just talking about the self-care thing and just about treating each other with grace. Can I just add a little suggestion as well? You know, you asked me, how are you today? And one of the best answers I've heard is, I'm actually doing better than I deserve. I'm doing better than I deserve. And I think if we can remember that as self-talk, that actually I'm doing far better than I deserve, I think that's the kind of internal dialogue and conversation we need to have with each other as well, like that. So, but thank you for sharing those great insights as well.
Well, thank you. And I thought that was the perfect topic to bring up with you here because you have great insight to that. But we're going to shift gears a little bit and take you a little bit out of your comfort zone. And we're going to talk about your book, Dancing with Wisdom. I love this book. So what made you want to write a book about wisdom?
That's a great question, Donna. You know, it was I knew I had a book that had to come out. I've known that for over 10 years. And you sort of put things to pen to paper, and you sort of, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. And what I think it was that over time, I began to realize that actually it was a book that I felt God called me to write, quite literally. and bringing the pieces together. You know, I was blogging for about 5-6 years, and a lot of the themes were about wisdom and making sense of life. And when I've looked at them and thought about my own life, I've often, you know, I came as an immigrant from India to the UK over here as a young child, and I really did not fit in. And I really struggled to understand the culture and the ways of relating to other people. And that was as a kid. Growing up, it's never left me. I've always been that geeky kid who's on the fringes, who never quite fits in. You know, by the grace of God, I got into medical school, and I became unstuck, and I discovered that medicine wasn't really my kind of thing, and I had to go through that. So often in life, I've always felt on the fringes, and I've felt I've needed wisdom. So I've sort of written the book that I wish I'd had when I was struggling myself.
Well, and that is a good point. It's like they do say, if you can't find the book that you want, then you need to write it.
Yes, so, that's right.
So there was a lot of work that we did on this book together, and I was so thankful that you would allow me to go along with you on this journey. But
I just want to say this, because you know, it was 2 years. I think I just want to publicly thank you, because you really helped me so much with the practical book publishing whole part of it. You were just fabulous in terms of your patience with me in trying to navigate through the complexities of the publishing world and how it all works, and working with Ingram Spark and the publisher and the design and the formatting. You were just amazing. I just wanted to just thank you for that. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that is so kind of you. Thank you. I just try to do what, you know, just comes naturally to me. It's like, you know, teacher background. It's like, that's just kind of the way I operate. But I know that there was...
I'm just going to quote you in the acknowledgement. It says, Donna Cowan, your practical experience in all things to do with publishing was such a lifeline to me. Your positive can-do attitude and hearty affirming laughs on our Zoom calls made such a difference. When I felt myself getting overwhelmed, our calls were a breath of fresh air and huge encouragement.
Aww.
So I just quoted that from the book. That's at the back of the book. You
know, and this is the moments that you don't realize they're going to happen when you do all these things. You know, I just do it from my heart, and because it makes me happy to help other people. So to get, you know, such thanks from somebody it's just amazing. So wow, thank you so much for that.
Well, it's a pleasure, Donna. Yeah.
No, that's fine. I wanted to get back to your book because there are some really important things going on in your book. It is an amazing book, and I got to tell you, it's like I've read it like 3 times, and I still don't think I got everything out of it that I need to.
Wow.
So,
okay.
So let's talk a little bit about. So there was a significance to why you wrote this book and the date March 17th. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So 17th March 2014 is the date you're referring to. And it's the reason I put that date there is that in the week I had a very good friend called Abhishek Banerjee, nicknamed Bunty, and I was with him in the week in India just that previous week, and I go into a lot more detail about that in the book. But that date was the date that I actually got a phone call from his wife in the evening, and her words to me was, if someone's heart's not beating for 3 hours, can they still be alive? And as she rambled, it just dawned on me. And then she said to me that I'm here in the hospital with Abhishek, and the doctor's not giving me a straight answer, and the police are here. And it didn't dawn on me that he'd actually died, and he was only 32, and he'd made some references about being unwell, but I could never imagine that something as devastating as that would happen. And I'd literally arrived, that was on a Monday evening, I'd arrived from India on the Sunday night, and I was in a complete shock. And so literally, it was my wife's birthday on the Wednesday, but I just said to her, I'm in complete daze about this. I have to go back to India. And she said, no, you must go. And I got a flight on the Tuesday, and I was basically, I got to, I went to Calcutta. I flew back to, I've never been to Calcutta. Just went straight to where his funeral was, and got to the tail end of his funeral and spent time with his mother and his widow. Yeah, it was, I mean, you know, it was one of those things that, you know, that hits you completely blindsided, and you think, oh my goodness, you know, life is so fragile, life is so precious, and it can be taken away just like that. and it raised lots and lots of questions, you know, about what is life about, how am I living with this sense about how precious this life is, and how can I actually live with, you know, every day is a gift. Every day is a gift of grace. We're talking earlier on. How can I live with that awareness? Not in a way of, you know, fear and trembling and scared, but in a way of awe and wonder and thankfulness and gratitude and reverence and awe, really. In, you know, at the same time having to do the dishes and to put out the rubbish, put out the garbage and all that, everything else. Still living with this fact that, you know, that we are, you know, amazing beings given the gift of life, and what a privilege and honor that is to live, even in this world with all the messiness that there is around us.
Right. And for those of you who do go out and purchase his book, there is an amazing tribute that he has written in the front of the book to his friend Bunty, who inspired him to write this book and continue. And, you know, I have to say, I've had friends in my life, but I've not had many friends that feel as deep as the friendship that you and Bunty had. So I do want to express my condolences to you. I know it's been years, but I know it's always going to be a place in you that misses him here with you.
Yes, and just, I mean, just to say, because that was the 17th of March 2014, and in the grace and sovereignty of God, we released the book on the 17th of March 2021, which was 7 years to the day. What was even more what was also very beautiful about it was that I sent an advance copy to his mother and widow because they're in India, in Calcutta, about 6-8 weeks earlier, and it didn't arrive, and I sort of gave up hope on it. And then I got a phone call from his mother on the morning of the 17th of March, saying to me, the book's arrived, and she read the dedication and the final tribute, because it opens with the dedication and it closes with a final tribute to Bunty. Mm-hmm. And she'd not read it before, she'd not seen it, and it was just it was a lovely thing for her, and it was a sense of, you know, God having his hand on this project, and yeah, that was just yeah, that was just amazing. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's like I would hope that when I pass on from this life, that I would enjoy such a resounding tribute. So that is a testament to your character and the character of your friendship. So we're going to get back to the book a little bit. So wisdom itself is a very complex idea, and everybody has their own opinions and ideas of what is wisdom, what is not wisdom. So how do you define it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's so many ways that you can go in this. Okay, we come to wisdom first of all because we've got a problem, we don't know what to do. Okay, so we need wisdom. We need some outside source. So definitions are, you know, I use a number of different definitions. So, for example, one that keeps coming to mind is wisdom are timeless truths that connect you to the best version of who you are and who you long to be. You know, if science is organized knowledge, then wisdom is an organized life in the fullest sense of the word, body, mind, and spirit. But wisdom is also much more than that, because ultimately, as you read the book, what I want to do, what I'm seeking to do is introduce personal wisdom. Because ultimately, I think Albert Einstein said is that the fundamental question we need to ask is the universe a friendly place or a hostile place? And I think wisdom is at the heart of the universe. And it's a person who you can know. I mean, you can see it, you know, it's like a diamond. You can look at this from so many different facets and angles. And in a sense, that's why I wrote a book about it, because it's such a vast and awe-inspiring and beautiful subject.
Right. And like I said, I've read the book 3 times, and each time I think at a different facet. But you know what? It really makes me think. So how did you connect wisdom to dancing? That's what I want to know. I mean, I know because I read the book, but
yes. Well, I mean, the dancing with wisdom, the title came very late. We had lots, and I think, yeah, and I think you were part of that journey as well. We had lots of ideas we were dancing around with, literally. We were dancing around with. So if you think about it, when you dance, you have a dancing partner. Well, you should have, you know, you've got a dancing, and so you have to, as it were, coordinate with them in terms of when they move, you move. And, you know, we live in a world that's very chaotic, confusing, cynical, challenging in so many different ways. And what that does is it produces a kind of noise that produces a horrible effect you know, in our lives, and we see the messiness all around us. But if we can learn to dance with wisdom and the complexity of life, we can actually produce something beautiful. You know, if we can hear that in all the messiness, there is actually, I would say, the, you know, the music of God, or the music that God is wanting to get through to us, we can dance to that. So rather than complaining, criticizing, condemning, you know, all this kind of sort of negativity, if we can say, okay, look, maybe, you know, embracing this world with all its imperfections and brokenness, and still find the beauty, still find the loveliness in people and things, and even in what he's given me, then we can begin to dance with that and create something beautiful for him. I think that's so I think dancing, it conveys the emotion, it conveys the zest, the joy, the fun, the life. And that's why, you know, so wisdom isn't a dry academic subject. No, it's something that wants to engage you, body, mind, and spirit, in your whole being. When you dance, you know, you bring your whole person into it. You can't be doing something else in dancing. You're totally there. And I think that's what wisdom wants you to dance and engage with life in all its abundance and fullness and beauty.
Right. And what I got from it is that, you know, as we talked about, wisdom has so many facets that you can almost choose your dance partner with wisdom too.
Yeah, yeah, it's in terms of how you engage with what there is, with all that's going on around you. Yes.
Right. So yeah, so you are dancing with wisdom. You're trying to decide which facet. So in the book itself, Dancing with Wisdom, you structure around the 4 Ds, which is discovering, desiring, developing, and deepening in wisdom.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Why was that in support?
Yes.
Set it up.
Yes. Great question. I think the first reason, so the first one that you said was the discovering, because in life we say we don't automatically go to wisdom. We say, I need more money, I need a different job, I need a different government in this country. Okay, you know, whatever country you're in. Okay, you know, you know, I need a different spouse. I need different children. I need children. You know, we're always looking outside. I need something. Okay, and I think one of the first steps is that you realize actually, it's not so much the problems out there. It actually starts within me here, and I need, actually, what I need more than anything else is wisdom to cope with the complexity and the confusion around me, or the discouragement, or the things that are getting me down. How do I handle this in a way that brings life? So that's why it's discovering. So when you realize that actually what I need is wisdom, and what's fascinating is that in the scriptures, in the biblical scriptures, there's lots of cautions about what you put your trust in. So, you know, relationships are good, but be careful about relationships, because there are people who can betray you, hurt you, harm you, take you advantage. So be very careful. Money's great, but again, be careful about money, because loving money too much can cause you lots of problems. Okay, you know, getting married and having children is great, but again, marry the wrong person or treat your spouse the wrong way, and it's got problems. And same with your kids. So lots of things to be careful about. But with wisdom, the biblical scriptures say, just go for it, even though it costs everything you have. Give it your very best. So that's why I talk about desiring wisdom, hunger, and, you know, people hunger and thirst for all sorts of things. They hunger and thirst to get more money. They hunger and thirst to get that career recognition. They hunger and thirst to be admired and liked. Okay, and those things are, but actually, if I hunger and thirst for wisdom, then life may not go the way I want it to go. But, you know, and again, we talked about Bunty's death. You know, things that may not make sense, they may still be a mystery, but I know that ultimately it is going to make sense one day. So the desiring wisdom is wisdom for the heart, wisdom for the mind, wisdom for life. And I say that we have restless hearts, questioning minds, and disordered lives. And so we have these restless hearts that are always looking for something to bring satisfaction and never quite being satisfied. And, you know, we live in one of the, you know, it's hard to believe, but we live in one of the best times to be alive. You know, in terms of the technological resources, you're in California, I'm here in London. You know, we can communicate like this. You know, if you told our parents or grandparents about this, what we can do, they'd say you're in heaven. You know, so yeah, it's the best. You know, it's Charles Dickens. You know, he says it's the best of times and it's the worst of times. But what do you want to focus on? So wisdom for the heart, wisdom for the mind. You know, we have questioning minds, and we're having curiosity, but you know, there are so many dangers out there. And then, you know, getting that balance right, and then wisdom for life. And we live in, you know, I've worked as a psychiatrist, so, and there's a chapter called Wisdom for Life, and it's probably the heaviest chapter in the book, because it talks about the problems that we have in our world because of a lack of wisdom, you know. So we've got depression, loneliness, we've got stress, we've got burnout, we've got anxiety, we've got suicide, you know, rising rates of suicide, all these things that come from a lack of wisdom. So discovering wisdom, desiring wisdom, then developing wisdom. And that's 3 parts there, which is manage your ego in terms of with you know, an ego is you know, when we use the word ego, we think in terms of, we say he's got an she's got an ego. We're not complimenting them, but we've all got an ego, and it's getting the right balance of the ego, not too much and not too little. You know, not thinking too highly of yourself, not thinking too little of yourself. Getting that right balance. You know, humility being not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. So not being so self-centered. So managing your ego, removing your idols, those things that we put too much investment in, and removing your idols, and then challenging your assumptions. My assumptions about how life should work, that life needs to go my way, and if you know, that's the whole area around so discovering, desiring, developing, and then deepening in wisdom. And I talk about defining wisdom with the divine, because if we're serious about wisdom, we have to, as it were, deal directly with the mystery of life itself, and make sense of only with a God-centered view does life make sense. Or as Macbeth says, it's a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. What does it mean? And so in that chapter, we go into the biblical scripture more and look at Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Job, which are different aspects of wisdom. And then from defining wisdom with the divine, then it's deepening in wisdom with 4 basic questions of life that everyone has to ask, consciously or subconsciously, is being, who am I called to be? Relating, how do I relate to others? Doing, what am I called to do that no one else can do? And then leaving, ultimately, how do I leave this earth? Or even, you know, transitions, how do I leave a job? How do I leave a relationship? You know, all these kind of things. And then ultimately, what's your next best step, and where are you going from here?
Right. So, and as I said, this book is very deep, very detailed. It will make you think. And I do encourage you to go out and purchase his book, Dancing with Wisdom. You're going to read it over and over again, and you're going to get many things out of it. So we're following you through the book. We figured out what we want, what we feel like we need. And then we figured out that we need to figure out how to get what we want and need. And then we have to decide, was it really important? So we have to discern what of that was noise and distraction and what of it was important, which is kind of what we're following here. So what benefits does that give me going forward to have this wisdom?
Wow. I think ultimately you realize, because, you know, life it's not a problem to be solved, okay? But in a sense, life is about, you know, every day I've got to get up, I've got responsibilities, I've got to, as it were, the day-to-day responsibilities, but I have a calling. And so this sense that God has his hand upon me, and that he will provide the wisdom with all the things that will come up today, things that I may have no clue about what to do, things I feel inadequate or unprepared for or unable to do, that he somehow or other is providing strength, the ability, the enabling, the insight, the wisdom to deal with that. I think so. In a sense, it ultimately brings a confidence into life that that I don't have to have all the answers, but I do know the one who does have the answers, and he's weaving some kind of rich tapestry through this for my ultimate good and for the good of others, rather than me, as it were, being the one who has to come up with all the answers and solutions. So I think ultimately it gives a confidence and a joy. So, you know, the tagline is for Dancing with Wisdom is a sacred quest to restore meaning, purpose, and fun to your life and work. So it's the meaning, it's the purpose, and it's the fun to your life and work. That's what the promise of wisdom is.
Right. I like to think of it as kind of giving, as you said, comfort to find my place in the tapestry of life, that I don't have to always be front and center, nor do I have to be a wallflower. Sometimes I get to be all of those things because that's part of my thread in the tapestry of life. And that does give me comfort to know that I will get interwoven with everyone else's threads, and we make a beautiful picture, and I don't have to worry about what am I not doing? What am I not thinking? What am I not knowing? It's like, if I want to know something, I go look for it. If I want something, then I have to decide, is it important? And then I figure out how to get it. But in the long run, my life is part of that tapestry of an overall life. And it does give me comfort knowing that
Yes.
looking at it through the lens of being wise, having wisdom, having the ability to discern what is good and what is not.
Yes.
And,
Eugene
and that,
Peterson's got,
and that depends on me.
but Eugene Peterson's got this lovely phrase, which is the rich simplicity of being yourself before God and others. And I just love that. I mean, that's true riches, you know, the rich simplicity of being yourself before God and others. The fact, you know, like a child who doesn't, you know, you're not worried what other people think of you. You are who you are.
Mhm.
You know, there's nothing to be ashamed or embarrassed about.
Mhm.
I am who I am, warts and all, with all my imperfections, but that's okay. And you know, there are people who I gel with and get on with, and there are people who I don't, and that's okay. But I am, you know, God's made me, and
Mhm.
and I rejoice in that. Obviously, there are things I've got to learn and grow and develop in, but I I don't have to feel, as you said, you use that, you know, I don't have to be a wallflower, and I don't have to be the center of attention. I just have a rich simplicity of being who I am, and how can I serve him, and how can I be present to those around me in a way that brings life and brings support and encouragement, rather than being a problem.
Right. And you know, it really has made a difference for me in reading this book again and again, because I feel like it makes it okay for me to be me.
Yes.
And you know, not chasing something that everybody says I should be. I can just be me, and that's okay. And I'm perfectly good
Yes.
person the way I am. And I think also what I find is that people appreciate me more when I'm me than when I'm trying to be something else.
That's right. Yes, exactly. Because yeah, because everybody else is already taken, as they say, as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that is great. So we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about why you're here on the writer's parachute, other than we
Yes.
want to talk about your book. So I know that you and I worked together for about 2 years to get this book done. So what was the big problem or challenge that you encountered? I will get it out here in a minute. Too many E words.
Right.
What was the challenge that you encountered when you were trying to get this book and program out into the world?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, uh, one of the biggest things I would say to your viewers and listeners is that anything worth doing always takes longer and takes more out of you than you first imagined, but it's worth it in the end. And it took a lot out of me to do it, you know, blood, sweat, and tears. You know, and times you think this is going nowhere. I'm just going round and round in circles. This will never happen. But you know, literally, if you just keep putting one brick on top of another brick, eventually you'll build a house. And you know, there were some days when literally I basically set myself a target: is I will spend 15 minutes on this book every day, and that's all I did. Just 15. You know, if I write 2 words, that's 2 words more than I had before. So I think, yeah, anything, you know, but I think you've got to enjoy the journey as well. So there were times when I would beat myself up about it, but you know, as time's gone on, it's okay. You know, you've got to enjoy that, and it's got to be you've got to be writing about something that fascinates you and that you're passionate about. If you're not fascinated by what you're writing, if you're not passionate about it, don't do it.
Right.
It's not worth doing it. It's got to be
No.
something that you really love. And you know, and I love this subject. And as I said, I could, as I look back on my life, I can see how God has been speaking to me through this subject, and I want to carry on exploring it more and more. So what was your question? I lost even track.
We were just talking about your challenges. So it sounds
Yeah.
like, you know, and you know, this is something we talk about a lot with writers and authors is, you know, you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And
Yes.
this is one of the things, you know, to sit down and figure out how to write a book, it sounds like it's just a mechanical process. It's like, okay, I'm going to write so many words a day, and then that'll be done in a certain amount of time, and then I'll edit it, and it'll be ready to go. It's much more complex than that, as you and I well know. So do stick around towards the end of the show. We're going to pull the ripcord on a author writer tip today, and we're going to talk a little bit more about finding your passion when you're writing a book. But I want to continue with Sunil here. So what is it that you hope that readers are going to take away from your book, Dancing with Wisdom?
I think the biggest thing I think would be a hunger and thirst for wisdom in their own lives. So what I've really tried my best to do is, in my book, I've tried to talk about my struggle with finding wisdom from my own, with my own personal questions and discouragements in my life. Examples from patients as a psychiatrist who I've dealt with, as well as reflections on the world. But by trying to be transparent open about my life, what I really would love for the readers is to then reflect on their own lives and think about, what does it mean for you in your own particular journey, your own particular quest, as you've got unanswered questions, as you've had your own struggles. What is wisdom saying to you, and how can you dance with wisdom? So if after reading a book that you are hungry and thirsting for that, and that gets you to really begin to seek wisdom and seek God and his hold on your life, then I think I've done my job that way. That's what, so it really intersects with your own life.
And it does. It makes me think so long and hard about how I approach my life, how I approach pretty much everything I do, even including my relationships, because as you said, you can easily slip over the edge into too much or going in the wrong direction. So I do appreciate that. So I understand that you have a special offer for our audience today.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so link to that. So if you go to drsunil.com/workbook, so drsunil.com/workbook, you can download a workbook that goes with the book. So it actually follows the chapters in the book, but actually what we just said earlier on, there's spaces for you to write in there your own reflection. So it's got a number of different questions. I mean, ideally you'd want the book as well to look at the chapter, but you don't have to have the book. But the workbook is a good accompaniment to the book as well, for you to think about, what is wisdom saying to me in my life, with in the good and the bad and the ugly of my own life. So it's just drsunil.com/workbook, and you can download that for free.
Okay, so that is DRSUNIL workbook, WORKBOOK.
.com.
So it's at drsunil.com/workbook. So we will have that in the show notes for you. So please do check those. We'll have all the links to reach out to Dr. Sunil, to reach him on his website and all of his social media, and links to his book, Dancing with Wisdom. So please be sure to check those. So do you have any plans to write another book or have something following up Dancing with Wisdom?
I wanted to give, I mean, in a sense, at this point, no. At this point, I'm sort of I'd like to develop some more online resources to go with the book. So that's really what my current focus is on. If I could just give one other tip that I'd say as well, is that the other thing you really must watch when you're writing a book is, don't get into the comparison trap. Because, you start looking at, so for example, you start looking at how many reviews you've got, and I think currently I've got about, and thank you, Donna, you did a review for me as well, 44, 45 reviews. And then you look at another author who's got like 45,000 reviews. And you think, oh my goodness, don't get into any comparison game. I'd really just encourage, this is your race, okay, on your terms, okay? Be inspired and encouraged by what other people do, but don't compare yourself to anybody else. It's deadly. It's deadly. There's always, no matter how far you get, there'll always be people ahead of you. Always be people ahead of you. Unless you're J.K. Rowling. Unless you're J.K. Rowling. Unless you're J.K. Rowling.
Well, I think even then, there's always people ahead of you. There's always people behind you. There are always people that are going to look at you as the pinnacle that they're trying to reach for, when you're looking at someone else as that pinnacle. And it's going to constantly move. And here's what I have to say. You have to look at what it is that you want.
Yes.
What your journey is, because, while reviews matter and they are king in the world of authors, it's it's not a foot race. It is a marathon. Being an author and a writer, it is a marathon. It is not something you're going to win in a week, in a year, in a day, in 5 years. It's, it is about continuing the conversation and continuing to go on, because once your book's published, it's pretty much going to be out there for the rest of your life. So what does it matter if I make #1 bestseller this year or 5 years from now?
Exactly. And the other big thing to add as well is that marketing and publicizing your book is as big as writing it. That's the other big thing. So you really, there are challenges all along the way. So you've really got to enjoy what you're doing. Yeah. Otherwise, it's not worth it. Otherwise, don't do it.
Absolutely. So, and we talked a little bit about that you have a program, but you also have a podcast that dovetails with the book Dancing with Wisdom. So what can you tell us about those if our listeners want to check those out?
Yeah, so my podcast is the Dancing with Wisdom podcast, and there's a YouTube channel, Dancing with Wisdom, as well, that goes along with that. And on that podcast, currently we're currently in season 2, and we're following the chapters in the book and just further conversation that build on this whole issue about what it means to dance with wisdom in a world that is increasingly cynical, complex, chaotic, and confusing. So how can we not just survive, but actually learn to thrive in the messiness of life?
Right. And also beyond that, I do want to let your readers know, because this is not often the case, but he does have his book on Audible as an audio book. So sure. It is a very deep book that you might want to listen to or read in segments. So I do like the option of having the audio book, and we will have all those links in the show notes to his podcast and to his program. So where can readers find your book?
Yeah, so it's available on Amazon, Kindle, paperback, hardback, and as you said, and on Audible as well, on all those platforms.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, if I did my job right, that it should be available worldwide at most retailers.
Should be, yes. It is on all Amazon. It's available worldwide. Yes, that's right.
All right. So, and then where would readers or podcaster listeners connect with you if they want more information, if they want to dive deeper into this Dancing with Wisdom and maybe check out your program?
Yeah, I think if you just go to drsunil.com, then you can reach me there. If you want to send me an email, it's office@drsunil.com. Just office@drsunil.com, and I'll pick up your email from there if you want to talk further. But there's also details about my coaching programs. It is over there as well.
Well, it has been amazing talking to you. I'm always so inspired when I talk to you. I'm always so inspired when I pick up your book, and I just love the color. It's like this amazing yellow, vibrant color, just always makes me feel so happy and sunny when I just pick up this book. So it kind of puts me in a good mood to kind of check it out anyway. So I do want to mention that he did an amazing job trying to pick out a great color that gets you in the mood to read it. So I'm going to give you one last moment. Was there anything else that you wanted to share with us today?
Wow. So certainly, I'd love you to get the book. The workbook is available, as you said, at drsunil.com/workbook. And I think I've said so much already, really. No, I think it's all there in the book, and I think that this is about wisdom. It's for your whole life, and I do reference to you never outgrow your need for wisdom. You need it today, and it's about you introduced me about living life in crescendo, and I think we live in a world that's so despondent, so negative, so much that there's so much that can depress you, and so much that you can be fearful about. But I really genuinely believe that wisdom gives us the path to living life in crescendo, so that our best years are ahead of us. There's a lovely quote from Jonathan Edwards who says that in Christ our bad things can turn out for good, our good things can never be lost, and the best is yet to come. And I think wisdom holds the key to that, to say that the best is ultimately yet to come. Wow.
I don't think I can top that, but I have to go on with my show here and give them a tip for writing. And I almost want to end right there because that was amazing. But we're going to go ahead and pull the ripcord on a tip, and we're going to ask Dr. Sunil to hang out with us because we want to thank him again at the end of the show and mention his links again. So today, he brought up in his challenge that he was talking about, the time and energy and effort put into it, about the long slog, the long haul, the journey of writing and publishing your book, and a little bit about the passion behind it. So I want to give you a tip about those things. When you're starting out with your journey, or if you're finding that you're stumbling, you're not wanting to put in that time, as he said, sometimes just 15 minutes a day is all you can do, and that's okay. And sometimes it is just about moving the needle forward. Even when you're working, thinking is writing. A lot of times I will sit on my chair or lay on my couch or on my bed, and I'm thinking through the plot. That is part of my writing. It is part of my passion. I dream about my characters. I've talked openly about one of my characters, Simon Cheddar, who constantly invades my dreams, wanting bigger parts, wanting, certain actions happening in the books. And that's me working through the process of writing. It is a passion for me. And if you are struggling, I want you to think about the passion. I want you to think about who it is that you're writing that book for, because I guarantee you, it doesn't matter what you're writing about. I know this for sure. There is somebody out there waiting to hear your words. They are desperate to get them. So if you can't focus on what specifically you're writing, or something about that writing that you need to get out in the world, think about that person that's sitting there waiting for you to publish that book so that they can get that information. Because what I do know is what we find ordinary about ourselves, other people find absolutely extraordinary. And as authors and writers, we feel compelled to share our knowledge and our talents and our thoughts with the world. Now, we may not tell them exactly how to do things, but we want to start the conversation. I think that is our point in history, and that is our point in life, is that we start the conversations. We bring up the topics that need to be discussed, that need to be thought about. As Dr. Sunil pointed out so eloquently, we need to think about wisdom. We need to include it in our lives. We need to approach it methodically and dance with it. So I hope that works out for you today. And we again want to thank Dr. Sunil for joining us today. Again, don't forget to check out his book, Dancing with Wisdom. We will have the links in the show notes. Also go check out his website at drsunil.com. His workbook is drsunil.com/workbook. And also his podcast, Dancing with Wisdom. It is on iTunes and Apple and any other Amazon Music. So please go check that out. And if you do get his book, authors live by reviews. I know he doesn't request reviews, so I'm going to request them for him. It's an amazing book. I can't say enough about it, but do go check out the book, and go check out his podcast, or go check out his website. And if you get the book, or if not, go get that workbook. I think it will serve you well. So again, Dr. Sunil, thank you for joining us today on the Writer's Parachute. We hope all of your writing dreams have a perfect landing. And until next time, bye.
Thank you so much, Sunil. Bye-bye.